Iranian forces dealt a heavy blow to Israeli intelligence after bombing one of Mossad's key headquarters in Tel Aviv. And on Tuesday morning, a massacre was perpetrated by the Israeli army against 8 seekers in Han Yunis, with multiple Palestinians killed and injured. And the Panamanian government arrested about 34 people during protests against the social security reform in the province of Bocas del Toro. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. On Tuesday morning, Iran fired more than 350 ballistic missiles at Israeli-occupied territory, striking military facilities in Tel Aviv, including a Mossad headquarters. The Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps maintained its counter-offensive against Israel. The spokesperson for the Israeli Ministry of Defense assured that they detected most of the attacks by the latest models of missiles launched and warned that the attack will continue. According to Israeli media, the attacks hit the center of Tel Aviv and the Herzliya area, where the govt camp is located, which houses high-level military intelligence units and the Israeli Armed Forces Center. And Iran stated that it is exercising its right to self-defense against the war crimes perpetrated by Israel. At the 78th UN plenary meeting, Iranian Representative Amir Said Iravani explained that the Zionist regime mainly attacks residential areas, contrary to the Israeli narrative of carrying out surgical strikes without collateral damage. Iravani emphasized that Israeli bombings have resulted in 1,481 Iranians killed and wounded, including children. Given this situation, he emphasized that the Iranian armed forces have escalated their bombings against strategic targets in occupied territories, concentrating their attacks mainly on Tel Aviv and Haifa, two of Israel's most important military centers. And on Tuesday morning, a massacre was perpetrated by the Israeli army against 8 seekers in Han Yunis, with multiple Palestinians killed and injured. Gaza's Ministry of Health reports at least 60 Palestinians were killed and hundreds more injured, including dozens critically after Israeli occupation forces targeted civilians waiting for desperately needed aid at Al-Talia roundabout in Han Yunis this morning. Medical sources confirmed the rising death toll and described severe overcrowding in emergency rooms, intensive care units, and operating rooms. Medical teams are reportedly struggling to treat the influx of casualties due to dangerously limited supplies of life-saving medicines and equipment. Now we have a short break coming up. First, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. You'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's now return to the topic of the current escalations in the Middle East between Israel and Iran following the preemptive attacks of Israel against Iran. And for that, we are joined by Dr. Yvonne Telles, international law expert. Welcome, Dr. Yvonne, to From the South.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Dr. Yvonne, today marks the fifth day of the ongoing escalation of hostilities between Israel and Iran, following the first strikes of Israel against Iran and, of course, the legitimate response of the Iranian government against Israel. What can you tell us of the context of what is happening right now in that Middle Eastern region?
Okay, well, definitely we're seeing an escalation of the Middle East conflict, and that is bringing more actors to the scene. It doesn't mean that Iran has not been in the spotlight, but this time with a different aim, and that is, of course, to in a way respond accordingly to its right of legitimate defense regarding Israel's attack on the first place. However, this doesn't underscore what has been happening before, and that is, of course, a massive West position, hostile position towards what Iran means and towards what Iran means for the region itself, because of course the threats probably that it implies for how the Western countries see Iran, and the fact that Israel is a direct ally of the United States and Iran has been a long-standing enemy, a non-friend state for the U.S., means that there is an ongoing strategy, and I believe so, behind what we're seeing and the actions in Israel. And that means this hostility that Iran is facing, I think that probably with what we could see, and in face of what President Trump has said to Iran to give it up, and to give up this atomic weapons these nuclear weapons, as it's been said. So defines or shows that there is a high probability of the Western allies and directed by the US, executed by Israel, to try to deploy Iran's regime. And this is that's what we are probably seeing through Israel's actions. However, it is not very understandable how can Israel manage two or three conflicts at the same time. I'm talking about Gaza, I'm talking about Yemen, and now I'm talking about what it means to enter into military hostilities during a long period of time. So that's also an issue that we have to take into account. I think that probably the strategy of the West and probably the strategy of Israel is to deploy Iran's first and primarily commanders and leaders in order to try to destabilize the regime, because this is not a new conflict. This is an ongoing, and it goes back to at least the first part of the 20th century. And regarding also what has happened after the World War II, and how the definition or the redefinition of the territories in the Middle East came along with this new kind of conflicts, political conflicts, religious conflicts regarding these two states.
Dr. Yvonne, we saw yesterday that U.S. President Donald Trump left abruptly from the G7 summit that was being held in Canada, and while he was doing so, he also provided statements calling on the people of Tehran to evacuate. Do you believe that there could be a possible direct intervention? Because we know that in a way, indirectly, they are supporting Israel both military and politically. But do you believe that it's possible for the U.S. to intervene directly in this conflict, following the historical record that we saw direct intervention from the U.S. in Iraq, in Libya, in these other nations, in Syria, in these other nations that Israel also wanted to target, as they alleged that they were a threat to their existence?
Okay, yes, well, in the line of what I said before, we know that Israel is completely sponsored by the US. even though when Israel attacked Iran 5 days ago, the US came along saying that they didn't know about the attacks and they like posed a distance between Israel attacks in the first place. But we saw the backup coming afterwards when President Trump was requesting Iran to give up and, of course, telling people to evacuate. However, even though we know the history of the US, and we know this would be a kind of in a way like a proxy war regarding that Israel is the one executing on the territory the actions, and it's the one that's being exposed, and the US is just in the back of the whole scenario. I think that there could be a higher probability that the US comes along because and I think if Iran shows a kind of a weakness or maybe commit some flaws or some probably mistakes. I'm talking about military strategy that may be a possibility that the US will try to get advantage of. However, there's another issue, and that is what is Trump facing inside his own country. We saw what happened during this military parade. We saw and we are aware of what's happening regarding the population of the US and what he's facing inside his country. So I don't know. And this is a question that I just pose, if that could be a kind of a deterrent for the US because of what it's facing inside. And probably that will mean that the US will just stay like a spectator, seeing and sponsoring Israel in the territory, but not getting into the territory itself. I'm not very sure right now what could happen, even though, and I agree with you, of course, we know that the US has not restrained itself for getting into others' conflicts or getting into others' territories. And this could be a good opportunity for the US if they want to deploy Iran's regime. This could be an opportunity that they are waiting for, even though we know that's contrary to international law. We know that's not ethical under international politics. We know how they have behaved, and that's what probably what is lying behind. On the other part of the show, there's Israel itself, Netanyahu by himself, knowing that he is facing very serious accusations from the International Criminal Court regarding the crimes that he's being adjudicated at this time. And we know that he knows that he's facing those. Probably that could also mean, and I heard that from coming from some specialists, that maybe Netanyahu in the end knows that he's gonna be facing very serious issues at international tribunals. So that would probably mean that he wants to just get on with all this. With all these actions that he has proposed before, and that means also getting into war and direct opposition with his enemies, maybe because he knows that by the end he's not going to be in power anymore. He probably will be facing something else. And this line that I'm saying at this time is some opinions from specialists that I've heard in Europe, basically, and in the International Criminal Court regarding Netanyahu's actions that cannot be completely understood.
Do you believe, because following all this escalation, we have seen countries of the region, Arab Muslim Islamic countries that have come to unite, have presented a united front in support of Iran and calling for the immediate stop of the Israeli attacks and calling to the international community to exercise that pressure to bring a stop to these actions. And also from other countries from the South have also expressed their support for Iran's right to defend themselves following the Israeli aggressions. Do you think that Iran, after the conflict settles, do you think it will have a lot of rebuilding to do, of course, but do you think it will come stronger? Its position in the international arena, both politically and legally, will be reinforced?
Well, I think we're facing very, very difficult times, and I'm not sure if I'm in a position to announce that. Why am I saying this? Because definitely Iran has the right of legitimate defense. That's a right that every state has when it is under attack or under imminent threat of attack. And that's what has happened over here. So Iran has the right to defend itself. It is what it's doing right now. Um, and this, of course, comes along with a support because we know that what Israel did was an attack under a suspicious of because it was suspicious of nuclear activity in Iran, but it didn't have the enough evidence to support that internationally. And if it was the case, and just let's imagine that Iran was using nuclear energy for wrongful acts, that is not the role of another state to come as police or to come as a judge or to come as a kind of impose punishments and even violate the prohibition of the use of force in order to just attack another country because it has something going on and probably something wrongful. I mean, in this case, there's not any other state that has that right because there's no state that has more or better rights than other. So in this case, that calls for a support, of course, of Iran. Iran, we know that has the means to defend itself. But in the end, war is war, and that will only end up affecting the people, affecting the population. We know that people are getting displaced by now, people are getting killed by now. So in the end, it will only affect people. Regarding your question, as if Iran will come up stronger or no, probably it will in the face of how Israel is being seen towards the whole international scene. Because Israel right now, and I'm going to call it the way it is, it's committing genocide in Gaza. There's enough evidence to support that. Netanyahu is facing it's facing claims towards the International Criminal Court regarding crimes against humanity, and Israel has not stopped for almost a year and a half of attacking an unarmed state, unarmed people, killing civilians. So that is, I mean, Israel is not in a good position, in an international position. Israel is being seen as a genocide state. And in that case, if we are comparing Iran towards Israel in the international scenario, Iran will come up, I think, a little bit stronger regarding that. It, in the first place, is defending itself because it was an unprecedented attack. And on the second place, it's towards a state that is already highly questioned in the international scene. So probably that will give more force to the supporters of Iran than what is happening with Israel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yvonne, for your time here from the South and for all your inputs.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
It's always a pleasure, as always. Let's now continue with our news, because while speaking at the 64th plenary meeting, 10th Emerging Special Session of the United Nations General Assembly, the Foreign Minister of Venezuela, Ivan Hill, denounced the crimes of the Israeli regime against Palestinians. Let's listen.
President, the situation on the ground is beyond critical. The conditions for millions continue to deteriorate day on day. We renew our most serious concern about the catastrophic consequences, including in the humanitarian domain, resulting from the ongoing brutal Israeli military operation and the crimes committed to date by the occupying power against the Palestinian people. In the Gaza Strip, we are witnessing what can only be described as a collapse of the most basic norms of international law and international humanitarian law. Over 55,000 Palestinians, the vast majority of them civilians, including women and thousands of children, have been killed.
We now have our second and final short break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Panamanian government arrested about 34 people during protests against the Social Security reform in the province of Bocas del Toro. Security forces stated that the arrests were made as part of Operation Omega, which aims to curb protests against the government of President Jose Raul Molino. The government specified that 24 of those arrested will be handed over to their public prosecutor's office. The remaining 10 will be brought before Justice of Peace. During the operation, authorities used tear gas to repress protesters in order to open 19 points in the province of Bocas del Toro, which were blocked as a measure to demand the repeal of the Social Security reform. And in Panama as well, trade unions and social movements announced new protests against the Social Security law. Trade unions announced that this Wednesday, June 18th, there will be rallies starting at noon local time in different parts of the country. In addition, they invited people to a popular march this Friday from Urraca Park in Panama City to the area near the parliament in solidarity with the people of Bocas del Toro and Ariame, victims of the use of police force. For their part, they reported that due to attacks by air, sea, and land, more like military operations, there are several injured, some seriously. And China positions itself as one of the main economic sources in Central Asia with an investment of more than $30 billion. On the occasion of the second China Central Asia Summit held in Kazakhstan, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce stated that in recent years investments have been on the rise and focused on green development and digitalization. Beijing emphasized that investment has been directed toward 5G connectivity and smart city construction sectors in the region. According to data from the Chinese General Customs Administration, trade with 5 Central Asian countries grew by 10.4% and in 2025 broke historical records. And in Thailand, health authorities reported an increase in COVID-19 cases so far in 2025. The Public Health Ministry recorded an estimated 76,161 infections and more than 100 deaths between May 24th and June 14th. The cities of Bangkok, Chonburi, and Chiang Mai have the highest number of infections, exceeding the figures for seasonal influenza. The ministry urged the population to wear face masks in crowded places, maintain hand hygiene, and get booster vaccines, especially citizens with high-risk health problems. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.